For whatever reason, I looked down at the floor and saw my wife's smiling face staring back at me. What? Hello. Hey. Anyway, I'm Clar. Welcome back to my channel. Love having you here. Today, we've got a bit of a different story. It's a bit of a terrifying story. I do enjoy some ghost stories. I'm a fan. I love it. This story comes from a follower, actually sent it to me, and I haven't read it yet, so I'm interested, but the title is, "My wife has been peeking at me from around corners and behind furniture." It's gone from weird to terrifying. I don't know. I guess she just like checking you out? Peeking. Sounds a bit weird. Anyway, shall we get into it? My wife, Lynn, and I have been together for 6 years and married for 11 months. Our entire history together has been very normal, and never once have I noticed any weird behaviors or red flags. I can't stress enough how out of character this whole thing is for her. Lynn is very kind, intelligent, thoughtful. Being childish or trying to scare me is not something she normally does. She doesn't even like watching horror movies. When we first started dating, she agreed to watch The Shining with me because she knew how much I loved horror. She was so scared that she didn't even make it through half of the movie before we had to turn it off. She isn't into anything creepy and has never been into pranks. It's just not her cup of tea, and that's fine. But that's what was strange about this. I should also add that she's never had any mental health issues, and as far as I'm aware, doesn't run in the family. I know some people are able to hide their mental health problems, but in the 6 years we've been together, I think I would have seen some sort of sign. Okay, thank you. A little bit of context. 2 months ago, I was in the kitchen making myself a coffee before work. I was running a bit late that morning, and I knew I wouldn't be able to make it to Dunkin' Donuts for my usual morning fix. I took a sip of coffee and I hurried down the hall towards the front door, when I happened to notice Lynn peeking at me from around the corner. I could only see her eyes and a strand of her long, dark hair against the wall. The rest of her body was concealed behind the corner. I nearly spilt my coffee when I saw her. It did burn the shit out of my lips. "Geez, Lynn," I said, wiping a few drops of coffee from my pants. "You scared the shit out of me." She immediately popped out from the view like a little kid that had been caught. I heard her scurry off towards the living room, and by the time I'd gotten to the front door, she was out of sight. It was really weird, totally out of character for her, like I said. But I also found it kind of funny that she was being more playful and a little less serious. I shouted that I loved her and called her a weirdo. As I shut the door behind her, I heard her laughing. Her behavior was a bit odd, but it certainly wasn't something to call a priest over. I forgot about it by lunch, and by the time I had gotten home, she was her normal self. I didn't bring it up again, and neither did she, and life went on. The next incident happened 3 days later. It was around 2 a.m. and I had woken up to get a drink. I was standing at the kitchen island, jug of OJ in hand, when I felt a strong feeling of being watched. Ew, that's so creepy. For whatever reason, I looked down at the floor and saw my wife's smiling face staring back at me. What? She was peeking at me from the other side of the island, staring up at me with wild, unblinking eyes and grinning like a Cheshire cat. No. Absolutely not. This is not. I screamed, I'll admit it. Not out of irritation, but fear. For some reason, at that moment, I was scared. At the sound of my scream, Lynn startled backwards out of my view. Her hands and feet smacked the tile floors as she hurried out of the kitchen on all fours. I didn't run after her or even yell after her. I just stood there frozen in shock, wondering what the fuck had possessed her to do that. It took a little longer than I'd like to admit to go back upstairs, but I eventually did. When I got to the room, Lynn was lying on her side asleep. or at least pretending to be. I stood there for a while and watched her breathing to be sure she really was asleep. I had the feeling she might jump out at me the moment I got into bed, but she didn't. I climbed into bed and she didn't even move. Her breathing was soft and deep, and I was starting to wonder if I had dreamt the whole thing. The next morning, I waited for her to come down for coffee, and after I handed her a mug and kissed her on the cheek, I decided to ask her about it. What was that about last night? I asked, keeping my tone light so I didn't offend or embarrass her. She frowned over her cup of coffee, shaking her head like she had no clue what I was referring to. You were peeking at me again. From over there, I said, pointing to the spot on the floor by the kitchen island. She frowned at my gaze. When she looked back at me, she burst out laughing. She laughed so hard that I couldn't help but join her. You creeped me the fuck out sometimes, you know that, I said. She giggled and set her cut on the counter and wrapped her arms around my neck. You creep me out all the time, so I guess we're even, she teased. We said our goodbyes and left for work. As I drove, I kept thinking about how creepy it had been seeing her grinning at me from behind the island like that. The sound of her hands on the floor and the way she crawled away. I told myself she was just trying to be silly, trying to join me in my love of all things horror. It's not like I was afraid of her, but it still didn't sit right with me. I started seeing her peeking at me more and more. Sometimes she'd been peeking out from behind the couch or the living room curtains. Once she even managed to get inside her grandmother's old trunk that sits at the front of our bed. I might not have even known she was there at all had the trunk old hinges not given her away. So she had the lid propped open just enough so I only see half her face peeking through. She had been grinning like an excited toddler. It was unnerving. I didn't even know what to say to her. All I could do was stare. When I finally found my voice, I asked her what on earth was she doing. She didn't answer, but she had slowly closed the lid, shutting herself inside the trunk. I just walked away, feeling disturbed. I didn't understand why she was doing it, but it was clearly making her happy. I just hoped she'd tire of the game quickly. Lynn didn't peek at me for the next 2 weeks. I started to think she was done with her weird prank, and I was relieved. We were watching a show on Netflix one night, and I jokingly said that I hadn't seen her peeking at me lately, and that she must have given up on spying game. She looked up at me with a small smile and said, maybe I had just gotten better at it. I didn't say anything, but I wondered whether or not she was joking. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. Was she still peeking at me when I wasn't looking? And I just hadn't noticed? And if so, what the hell was she getting out of this? I started to feel paranoid, constantly checking whether she was watching from around the corner or behind the door. I was jumpy whenever I was home, and when she wasn't in full view of me, I felt stupid and a little crazy. But after a few weeks without any incident, I began to relax. I stopped checking behind furniture and walls and told myself it was just a bad memory. Then a few days ago, things got so much worse. Lynn left to go to a friend's, and I was lounging on the couch and played a couple of games on my laptop. After 9 p.m., I hopped in the shower, and as I was washing the soap from my hair, I felt that awful feeling that I was being watched. I slowly opened my eyes and almost had a fucking heart attack. Lynn was peeking from behind the shower curtain, her entire head stretched into the shower, leaving her body outside. Her long hair hung against the curtain, the ends dripping with water. Her mouth hung open like a terrifying grin, her eyes wide and red, as if she hadn't been blinking for a while. Her mouth hung open in a terrifying grin. I screamed and jumped back against the wall. She didn't move, nor did her smile waver. Her makeup ran down her cheeks in 2 black streaks. She looked giddy and completely deranged. I was fucking terrified. We stood like that for a few moments, neither of us saying a word. Finally, after what felt like forever, she slowly pulled her head back out of the shower and I watched her blurry figure through the curtain as she moved back towards the bathroom door. Later, the bathroom door slammed shut, hard enough to rattle the mirror. I screamed again and jumped out of the shower to lock the door. I stayed inside the bathroom for over an hour. Maybe I overreacted to some of you, but joke or not, I wasn't going to put up with this crazy shit anymore. That's when I kept telling myself as I paced my bathroom and stopped to listen at the door every few minutes. Suddenly I heard a muffled sound and I pressed my ear against the door, straining to listen. I couldn't hear anything, but I envisioned Lynn standing on the other side of the door, giggling at her joke. I felt a surge of anger. I was beyond pissed at being made to feel scared in my own house and made to hide in the bathroom for an hour. All for what? Some joke. It wasn't a joke. If it was a joke, it was an awful one. Lynn, I called out, not even hiding the shakiness in my voice. I got no response, just my own heavy breathing. I swear to God, just fucking stop, I yelled, pounding my fist on the door. I waited for her to cuss me out, something I would expect from me talking to her like that. I never screamed at her before, but there was nothing, just the occasional drip from the shower head. I won't deny that I was scared, too afraid to open the damn door and face my own wife. I waited over 30 minutes, which feels like a fucking lifetime when you're scared. Finally, I wasn't going to spend the night hiding in my bathroom, so I got down on my knees and peered under the door. I almost expected to see her face peeking back at me, but thankfully I didn't. I could see straight down the hallway to the top of the stairs, but no Lynn. I didn't know if I should be happy about that or not. I looked for a few minutes, waiting to see her head pop up over the top stairs, but it never came. I stood up, my hand hovering over the door, and mentally prepared myself to open it. I slowly turned the lock with the shaky fingers and was about to yank it open when I heard a sound that still makes me feel nauseous when I think about it. A moan, louder than before, but this time I was able to tell just where it was coming from. I turned my head to the closet door as if in slow motion and locked my eyes on my wife, who was peeking out at me from the slight gap. Her eyes were still wide as ever and her mouth was hanging open in the most grotesque gaping smile I'd ever seen. I didn't even scream. I was too scared for even that. Her hands were clasped to her chest, body trembling with sheer delight, as if she could barely contain her excitement. A short, raspy moan bubbled up from her throat, deep and raw, sending a shiver through my entire body. Somehow I found the ability to pull the bathroom door open and ran as fast as I could all the way down the steps, snagging my keys and phone from the table in the living room before running outside to my car. I could hear her shrill laughter behind me, but I didn't hear her getting closer. I didn't bother shutting the front door. I drove away from my house faster than I legally should, shivering the entire time, either from fear or the cold, maybe a little of both. I hadn't grabbed a coat or even a pair of shoes. I was still in my boxers and my hair was still damp. I drove straight to my brother Chris's house about 40 minutes away, ignoring any and every call and text I got. I didn't check my phone until I was safely parked at my brother's driveway. Lynn had called 4 times and sent a flurry of texts, all wondering where I had gone, why I'd left like that. I threw my phone at the dash in a rage, furious at her nonchalant attitude. My brother and his wife were surprised to see me, especially dressed in just a pair of boxers, told me to stay as long as I needed. Chris lent me some clothes and asked me what happened. I told him Lynn and I had a fight, but didn't get into the details. I didn't want him to think I was overreacting, leaving my wife over a prank, even if it had been a strange one. I mean, hadn't I encouraged her for years to lighten up instead of being so serious all the time? I had wanted her to relax and loosen up, but this definitely but this was definitely not what I had in mind. I had tried to sleep on the sofa, but my brain wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lynn's face staring at me from inside the closet. Knowing she had been there with me the entire time made my skin crawl. She hadn't left the fucking bathroom. Instead, she slipped inside the closet and slammed the bathroom door shut to fool me. The mere thought of going back home gave me anxiety. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Chris ended up giving me a sleeping pill, so I was able to get a little rest. My sleep was filled with terrifying dreams, all of Lynn's smiling face. I woke up just as the sun started to rise. My sore body ached from the sofa and I felt drained. I know I had to call Lynn at some point, but I didn't know what to say. I wouldn't be going home unless she gave me her word she'd never do any more creepy shit. I just wanted my life to go back to normal. Her normal, serious self never looked so good to me. I was contemplating calling her and telling her that when the familiar feeling came over me. I was being watched. I stared at the ceiling. My eyes drifted away from the ceiling almost on her own. Her face was pressed up against the window beside the couch, staring down at me with some gaping smile. Drool dribbling down her lips, leaving 2 long streaks down the glass. I didn't even know how long she had been there, but something told me she had been there quite a while, possibly all night. I didn't bother screaming, though I was afraid. Anger trumped any fear I felt at that moment. I jumped up from the couch and pounded my palm against the window. Lynn, are you crazy? What the hell is wrong with you? Just go home, I shouted. Now. She didn't move. Her ghastly expression had changed. If anything, her smile only grew, as if she had never been more elated. I could hear Chris and his wife moving around upstairs. As if Lynn could hear them from the place outside, her head twitched slightly in the direction. Ugh. She began to close her mouth slowly. Chris called my name from upstairs, obviously concerned. I turned to see him and his wife Rebecca hurrying down the steps. When I turned back to the window, Lynn was gone. The only sign she had been there at all was the 2 streaks of drool still dripping down the glass. I tried to explain to Chris and Rebecca about waking up to Lynn watching me through their window. They were skeptical. Who wouldn't be? Chris and I went outside to the spot in front of the window, but there was no footprints in the dirt, just a slight indent. Animal, probably, Chris guessed, and I didn't argue. He and Rebecca assumed I dreamt the entire episode, but they didn't understand, and I was too tired to explain it to them. I called out of work that day and turned off my cell phone. I didn't want to see Lynn's face. Just talking to her was too much for me at this point. I really started to believe something was irreversibly wrong with her, that no matter what promises she made, we'd never be the same again. The thought saddened me to the core. I cried most of the morning. By noon, I figured I was ready to confront her, giving her one last chance to explain herself. I could at least give her that after 6 years, I told myself. I turned my phone on and saw dozens of texts she had sent, all from a seemingly concerned wife. Can we talk? I love you. Please call me. I'm really worried. Can you answer? Just come home. And more of the same. All the texts telling me she loved me and she wanted me home. How worried she was. Not a damn one addressing the crazy shit she pulled. Like she hadn't been acting like a character from a Stephen King book. Even her texts were different. She normally texts novels just to tell me to pick up a loaf of bread. You'd think she had more to say to me after her bizarre shenanigans. I know it probably seems childish to some of you who are miles away from the situation, but if you saw the way Lynn had looked at me, how she scampered away on all fours like some wild animal grinning at me from inside the closet like a lunatic, then I think you'd find my reaction was warranted. I ended up staying with Chris and Rebecca for another night. I didn't wake up yesterday until afternoon, and thankfully I didn't see Lynn's face watching me through the window. I don't want to pry, it's not my place, but is this fight something that can be mended? Rebecca asked. She made us both a sandwich for lunch, and I knew she wanted to broach the subject without seeming to be nosy. I don't know. She's just a different person, I said, choosing my words carefully. I still wasn't ready for her and Chris to know the full extent of the batshit craziness I had been dealing with. People change, Ben. But she's still the same woman you married. Maybe you both just need to talk through your issues. Whatever's going on. I'm sure it can be fixed, she said. Ever the peacemaker. I think it's beyond that now. I don't think talking would help. I just don't trust her, I said. The words stung my heart. I missed and loved my wife, but how could I live with someone like that? Living in constant fear didn't sound too appealing. Lynn loves you. She has been absolutely crushed, she says. I don't know about that, I said. Well, she certainly seemed like it to me. I've never seen her so upset. Very much unlike the Lynn I know, Rebecca said, shaking her head sadly. It took a few minutes for her words to really sink in, and when they did, I felt dread worming its way through my skin. Wait, what do you mean? You saw her? You saw Lynn? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. Rebecca nodded carefully as if that fact wasn't a nightmare fuel. Maybe for her it wasn't. She stopped by this morning just after Chris left for work, she said, clearing the plates from the set table. I didn't see her car though. Maybe she took an Uber or something. Beck, what did she say? Did she come inside? I asked, sweat starting to break out on my forehead. I began looking around, examining the corners as though a predator lurking behind them. No, she just asked if you were awake yet, and I said you weren't. I asked if she wanted to wake you, but she said no. Just said to let you sleep. She washed the dishes. That's all? She didn't say anything else, I asked? No, she just looked awful though, like she hadn't slept in days. I think you should call her. I got up from the table and thanked Beck for lunch. I felt a bit better at the knowledge that at least she hadn't come inside. I needed to double check the doors were locked. I sat for a while trying to figure out what to do next. I felt that I owed it to Lynn to help her if I could. Hadn't I sworn an oath to love and honor her through sickness and in health? Clearly, she was very sick. If she was sick, which I truly believe she was, I had to try and get her help that she needed, but I didn't even know where to start. I didn't want to call the police, and besides, what the hell was I going to tell them? That my wife is peeking at me? That she was being creepy? As bizarre as she had been, she still hadn't committed any crimes. Not yet anyway. The police probably would say that I was overreacting. But this wasn't some prank. It felt wrong. Dangerous even. Like something sinister lurking behind her smile. I think she's possessed. I fucking think she's possessed. I think she's possessed. Like, this isn't normal. This is giving possession vibes. I knew as her husband I was well within my rights to have her committed, but what if she simply acted normal in their presence? She had obviously been able to fool Rebecca into thinking she was just a concerned wife. As long as the doctors didn't find her a danger to herself or others, they'd have no choice but to release her after 72 hours. I felt lost and overwhelmed, so did what any husband in my position would do. I called her mother. Her mother, Marianne, and I were never on the best of terms. She just wasn't a very warm person and wasn't really easy to get along with. She hardly ever smiled, and when she did, her lips would move into a thin-lipped smile, leaving her eyes as blank as before. She gave off this aura that she felt like she was permanently on the offense. So I'm batshit crazy. I only met her twice, and both times were for such a short visit. I got the impression she didn't approve of me for her daughter. Lynn had always ushered us out quickly, as she didn't want me to feel uncomfortable, which I was grateful for. Being in her mother's company felt almost unbearable, like walking on glass. I was glad when we moved 3 states away so we didn't have to see her often. I was happy to avoid this woman, but I needed her help. I really didn't want to talk to her at all, but I had to talk to someone, and someone who knew Lynn better than I did. So I gritted my teeth and did what I had to. Yes, she answered, already sounding irritated. Marianne, it's me, Ben. Do you have a minute to talk? I asked. I could hear her cluck her tongue in irritation. I'm in the middle of writing some checks, but if you insist, I suppose I could spare a moment. What is it that you want to discuss, Benjamin? She said coolly. It's about Lynn. She's been acting strange, and I was wondering if you had any idea whether there was something. It's a bit difficult to follow your rambling, Benjamin. What is it that you want from me? She asked. I could also see her standing there in her thin sweater and slacks, tapping her fingernails impatiently on the table. I wanted to know if you'd ever notice any odd behaviour or possibly any mental health issues, I asked. There was a long, uncomfortable pause that I could tell that she was just thinking or something else. Finally, after a few seconds, she spoke. I'm not sure if this is one of your jokes, Benjamin, but if so, I don't find the humour in it. Now I have business to attend to. As I said if you don't mind, she said, but I cut her off before she could get rid of me. Marianne, it's no joke. I'm seriously concerned about Lynn's mental health. Her behaviour has been very erratic lately. I'm very worried about her, and I figured as her mother you would be as well, I said, my frustration evident in my voice. If you're truly concerned, I suggest you get the health professional involved. I don't know what you expect of me, she snapped. I could tell she was seconds away from hanging up for the same reason. I was desperate not to let her. I had the feeling that she knew a lot more than she was letting on. Yeah, she would. If there's mental health issues in the family, she would know the whole history. Maybe she's had an episode like this before. Please, if not for me, do it for Lynn, I tried. I heard a faint shaky intake of breath, as if she was trying to hold her steady persona together but failing. Benjamin, I don't know what to tell you. My only advice would be to seek professional help. Do not call here again. Goodbye. I tried calling out to her, but she hung up. I tried to wrap my hand around the call and her refusal to help me. Even if she didn't like me, why wouldn't she want to help her own daughter? I couldn't understand that. I tried to replay the conversation, desperate to find something I have missed. After a while, I almost gave up until I remembered her last words to me. Seek professional help, she said. Those words with a bit of urgency. I could have just been grasping at straws, but no, I was sure her voice had changed ever so slightly when she had said that, as if they were very important. What had she meant? I assumed she had been referring to a medical professional, but maybe she was referring to someone else, someone that didn't for some reason feel comfortable saying directly, or maybe I was just desperate. I waited for Chris to get home. After a very long and exhausting conversation with him and Rebecca, I convinced them that Lynn truly needed psychiatric help. I didn't tell them everything. I wasn't prepared to go into it yet, but I told them about the last encounter, how she hidden in the bathroom, peeking at me from the closet. They were obviously shocked, but thankfully they believed me. They too just wanted to help her. They didn't think it was all that serious. Not until you're witnessing it firsthand, but not dangerous. They just kept saying that Lynn had to be playing some kind of weird joke, Rebecca offered, half-heartedly. Chris didn't think we should involve the police just yet. He reasoned that calmly talking to her, trying to coax her into going willingly was the best recourse. I agreed to do it his way. At least I wouldn't be going into the house alone. We drove this morning, just after breakfast. There was no way I was going at night. When we pulled into the driveway, my stomach began doing somersaults. Her car wasn't there, but I still didn't let my guard down. The front door was ajar, and for a split second, I thought we had seen her eyes staring through the gap. I was shaking and starting to sweat. Chris, however, was fine. He waited for me to open the door, his hands in his pockets like he was going on a fucking stroll through the park. I begrudged his ignorance. I pushed the door open and was immediately hit with the stench of rot. Chris smelt it too, and he walked in the house behind me, his nose scrunched up. What did you guys use to clean the floors around here? Shit, Chris mumbled. Shut up, I said, my eyes darting around for any sign of Lynn. The house was deadly quiet, and dark despite being 10 in the morning. All the curtains were closed and tight, refusing to allow sunlight in. If I hadn't left just 2 days prior, I thought the house would be abandoned. We moved through each room carefully, checking any place she might be hiding, occasionally calling her name. Why the fuck are you looking under the couch? Chris asked. Aren't you looking for your wife? He was looking at me like I was a moron. Let's just go upstairs, I whispered. He shook his head but followed me up the stairs to check the bathroom and spare bedroom. On the way up, my shoes crunched over a piece of glass that looked to be littered over a few of the steps. I noticed that one of Lynn and my wedding portraits that hung on the wall along the staircase had been smashed. The frame hung crookedly, all the glass removed. I stared at the picture and a lump formed in my throat. We had taken this photo just after leaving the church. After saying our vows, she looked so beautiful in her white gown. I looked at Lynn's beautiful face. I never dreamt her face would ever be a source of terror for me. We climbed the rest of the stairs and checked the spare bedroom, but it looked completely untouched. I was hesitant to go in the bathroom, my fear from the night coming back to me all at once. Chris noticed and offered to go in by himself, but I couldn't let him do that. So we walked in together, checking the closet and the shower. The bathroom looked as if it had been untouched since the night I had left. I don't think she's here, Ben. Why don't you pack some clothes and we'll try coming back tomorrow or something? Chris said. I nodded and went to the bedroom and shoved some clothes in a duffel bag. When I checked inside the closet, I came across the source of the smell and gagged. Oh, what is it? What is it? What is it? Chris took a look and lost all color to his face. He had to go stand by the stairs to get away from the sight and the smell. I gazed down in shock at what lay inside my bedroom closet. Soaking into the rug was a dozen eyeballs, all carefully laid out in pairs. Some were large as quarters, while others were as tiny as marbles. I stared down at the eyes she had collected from small animals and wondered how she'd gotten them, and shuddered at the thought, holy fuck, she's killing animals. Oh my god, she's killing animals. Oh my god. Okay, man, I thought I had it bad with Beck's shoes addiction, but fuck me. Your wife's in here collecting eyeballs, Chris gagged. Ben, I think we should go, he called from the hall. I'm getting nauseous. All right, I grabbed the duffel bag and shut the closet door. On my new nightmare, I stepped out into the hallway and took a deep breath of fresh air. I could taste the rot on my tongue and couldn't help but gag. Who the fuck lines eyeballs up like that, Chris? I tried to tell you she needs help, I said. She doesn't need help, Ben. She needs a fucking exorcist. Are you coming or what? I can't stand the smell. His words died in his throat. His eyes grew wide with fear. I didn't ask him why. I could feel it. Someone watching me, and I didn't think it was the eyes in the closet. I turned around and my eyes slowly scanned the bedroom. Chris, I whispered as I finally saw what we'd missed. Watching us with the excitement of a child on Christmas morning was my wife. I could hear the quiet noises she was making, a sort of hiccuping sound in her throat, as if the excitement was too much for her. It was unnerving to say the least. Wide-eyed and with the same huge smile. Everything in me told me to run, but I forced it away. That was my wife, no matter how twisted. She was still the woman I married. I had to help her. Lynn, I said softly. She didn't respond, but her head bobbed back and forth in two wicked little movements as if she were nodding. Baby, I just want to help, okay? Can you let me do that? I asked. I had taken a single step forward, approaching her like some kind of dangerous animal. I love you, Lynn, I said softly, taking another step closer. She let a tiny moan escape her wide open mouth, and I had to resist the urge to run. Her shoulders were starting to quiver and her eyes grew as large as saucers. I crouched down so I could see her better and immediately saw blood. Her hands were covered in it. They trembled more the closer I got, as if she was barely able to contain herself. Lynn, are you hurt? You're bleeding, I said. She bobbed her head again, her bleeding fingers moving up and down as if playing an invisible piano. They occasionally grazed her chin, leaving smears of blood on her skin. I wanted to recoil in disgust. The smell that was coming off her was revolting. I could feel the vomit trying to climb my throat. Her lips were dried and stretched thin. Blood swept between the cracks. I knew she wouldn't come out on her own, but I didn't want to leave her in that state she was in. I scooted closer and reached out to her. The excited hiccup sound got louder and her hands shook, fingers flexing. It was then I could see the blood oozing from in between her fingers. My God, Lynn, you're bleeding, I said instinctively. I reached out to take her hand, but before I could even touch her, her hand sprung out towards me. A sharp pain shot through my arm, and I fell back on my ass. My arm burnt, and I could see the blood dripping down onto the carpet. I looked back at her in shock and saw her grinning madly. Her fingers clung a large shred of glass. Holy fuck, she's dangerous. You all right in there? Chris asked from behind me. I turned my head slightly and nodded at him, cradling my arm and chest. Then I turned back to Lynn and saw her focus had shifted. She wasn't looking at me anymore, and she wasn't smiling anymore either. She stared past me, her eyes glaring at Chris, the way a hungry lion might stare at an antelope. Her mouth was still hanging open, but it was twisted into a snarl. I got on my feet and began walking back towards the hall, afraid to take my eyes off her. Are you bleeding? Chris asked. The moment the words left his mouth, Lynn started scooting out from under the bed, the glass shard still in her fist. Oh my God, it's giving Exorcist vibes. Yuck. Oh my God, yuck. I'm lost. I'm too overwhelmed. Chris, run, go, I yelled. He must have been too afraid to move because a second later I felt my back bump into him. He was standing at the top of the stairs staring at the horror that was my wife. Lynn had crawled completely out from under the bed and stood in the bedroom doorway. Her face twisted in rage. Her whole body was visibly tense. Blood ran down her fingers onto the floor. Jesus, Lynn, Chris said. You are playing hide and seek? I reached back and pushed him towards the steps. Move your ass, Chris, I said as quickly and as firmly as I could. Lynn bobbed her head in fast, sharp motions and began to grin, stretching her mouth open wider and wider so that her chin seemed to touch her chest. I heard Chris mutter a prayer and then he was running down the stairs. I stood at the top of the stairs, struck between love for the woman who clearly needed serious help and self-preservation. I only want to help, I said, choking back tears. Her eyes focused on me again, slowly lifting the glass, holding it out in front of her, and then she started sprinting towards me, grinning with utter excitement. Thankfully, my body took over and I flew down the steps, skipping 2 or 3 at a time. I made it to the front door before I felt her leap onto my back, wrapping her arms around my neck. Oh my God, her open mouth next to my ear so I could hear those terrible hiccuping sounds up close. I shook her off me and knocked her to the floor. I felt a searing pain in my back, but I tore open the front door and bolted to my car. Chris was standing in the front yard, talking on the phone with police. I didn't say a word. I ran to the car and jumped in. Chris took the hint and followed me, still on the line to 911. I watched the rearview mirror, sure I'd see her there running after us, but I never did. I went straight to ER and got 11 stitches in my arm and 3 on my back. The police asked a lot of questions and went back to the house to do a search, but of course Lynn wasn't there. They advised me to stay with a friend or relative for a while to file a restraining order as soon as I could, but none of those things would matter. Somehow I just knew. I dropped Chris off at home and went to a motel an hour away. I wanted to put as much distance between me and Lynn as I could. This is where I have been for the last 4 hours. I thought maybe the police would find her. Maybe they'd get her the help she desperately needs. But now I don't think so, because 40 minutes ago I got a text from an unknown number, just 3 words. I found you. And a picture attached. The picture was dark and grainy, but I instinctively knew what it was. There was no mistake. My wife's eyes. I started typing this out immediately. I don't know what to do. I'm alone and scared, and I can't help but to feel that I'm being watched. Holy fuck. That's it. That's the end. I mean, I know I'm in absolute utter shock by this story. There's no update. I'm so sorry. I hate reading stories without updates. There's no updates. Okay, I need to debrief. My anxiety is through the roof. I'm glad we did this together. I'm a little bit less scared, okay? Let's see what Reddit has to say. Top comments. Okay, am I the asshole for leaving my wife? I'm just flicking back through the comments. Apologies. Not the asshole. This is not your wife. You need to get out of there and get help. Dude, this is straight up a horror movie material. You need to call someone. That's not normal. This is terrifying. Please keep us up to date. Stay safe. Yeah, I don't think you're the asshole. I think you're protecting yourself. Her behavior is not normal, wild. I would even say there's some sort of possession. Maybe something happened to her in her childhood. Maybe she is possessed. It seems demonic behavior. I don't know if it's a mental break. Could it be a mental break? I don't know. I'm not an expert with that. I don't know. My opinion, she's possessed by something and you need help. You need a priest. You need a blessing. You need to get an exorcist. Another comment here, is he still alive? That's what I want to know. Does anybody have any updates? If anybody has seen this story or has an update, please, I need to know. I hate stories that don't have a proper conclusion. I hate it. Drives me insane. Anyway, what do you guys think? Was he overreacting? Is he doing the right thing by leaving? Is his wife possessed? What do you think? Leave me a comment. All right. That's it for this episode. That was a wild ride, a wild, spooky ride. I need a drink after that. I really do. My anxiety is through the roof. But thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to email me, like and subscribe to my channels. Never miss to get to hang out with me because I love you. And don't forget to follow me on all my socials. Anyway, that's it, folks. I love you. As always, stay safe. Take care. And I'll see you in the next ones. Bye, besties. Bye.